Hey, this is Warren Redlick. Thank you for watching. Shots have been fired. Dillon from Electrified took some shots. He tried to be diplomatic, was not very diplomatic, and he did a response video to my Lucid scam video. So now this is my reaction video to Dillon's response video. We're always trying to be less wrong. One of us is more wrong. Maybe one of us is less wrong. I'm trying to be less wrong. And in the process, I'm going to dissect why I think Dillon is more wrong. Are you ready? Let's go.
Warren Redlick did this video, Lucid Lie, Battery Scam Exposed.
So this is Dillon from Electrified. This is his video, and you can see he's wearing a hat. So I have to bring out the heavy artillery. I'm wearing the plaid hat that I got at the plaid event because I was at the plaid event and they gave out these hats. So if Dillon can wear a hat, I'm wearing a hat.
Basically because, as you can see on the screen from the Electrify America DC fast charging, there were 134 kilowatt hours that were actually sent from the charger, and Lucid had told Tom Moloughney, who did this review, that the battery pack size was 118 kilowatt hours.
For starters, this is not the only reason that I've called Lucid a scam. I've made several videos calling out several lies that Lucid has told along the way. This is just the latest. Dillon seems to be coming into this without realizing that there's a history here. And second of all, Lucid didn't tell Tom Moloughney that they have a 118 kilowatt hour pack. It's on their website. They've claimed we have a 118 kilowatt hour pack in the Lucid Air Dream Edition and a 112 kilowatt hour pack in the Lucid Air Grand Touring. So it's not that they told Tom Moloughney that. I don't know where he got that idea from. This is when you come into something and you don't fully understand the issue, you say things that don't really fit the facts. So Dillon, if you're gonna make a video responding to me, you should do more research before you make your video. You should know that I've been exposing Lucid's lies for more than a year in multiple videos. I have lots of reasons for these views, and Dillon thinks that I think that they're lying about their pack because of this one issue, and we're gonna see in later clips, he's gonna use calculations I don't use. He's not really understanding my argument, and it almost seems like he didn't actually watch my video because he doesn't use any clips from my video, and he doesn't refer to the previous video I made, which I linked from that video to say, hey, this is why I think they're lying about their battery pack.
So many people are wondering, Warren included, how can you receive 134 kilowatt hours of charge if your pack is only 118 kilowatt hours? And many people think the actual size of the Lucid Air Dream Edition pack is between 135 and 140 kilowatt hours, and they're saying that Lucid is basically lying about the pack size to have the best efficiency on the market.
But just to be clear, what I have said in previous videos is, from multiple calculations, Lucid Air's battery pack appears to be 138.6 kilowatt hours. Not between 135 and 140, but specifically 138.6 kilowatt hours. They claim 924 volts and 150 amp hours. That works out to 138.6 kilowatt hours. They claim 6,600 battery cells. They claim they're using the latest, most advanced battery technology from LG Chem, which is a 300 watt hour per kilogram, 2170 cell. And when you do the math on 300 watt hours per kilogram, 70 grams a cell, 6,600 cells, big surprise, you come up with 138.6 kilowatt hours. And Dillon does not address either of those calculations in this response video because he's not responding to me. You're going to see this. He's going to respond to other people.
For Warren to say that Lucid is a scam or a fraud with the information that we all have available at the moment, I do think that is a bit of a stretch and a bit reckless in my opinion. Could he turn out to be right? Sure, I can't predict the future, but at this point, based on the info, I just think it's a bit much.
I'm a bit defensive here, but if you're going to call me reckless, I'm going to defend myself. And here's the problem, Dillon. I have a lot more information than you do because I've been studying Lucid and researching Lucid for over a year. You just came into this, you watched one video. I'm not even sure you watched the damn video. You looked at what other people were saying, and out of that, you come up with your opinion that I'm being reckless. Why don't you do some research? Why don't you watch all my Lucid videos before you decide I'm being reckless? Why don't you look at all the facts, and then you can decide who's being reckless? You're being reckless by coming in, taking a very limited amount of information, saying, well, we don't have enough information. You don't have enough information because you haven't done the research yourself. You're the one who's being reckless, Dillon. And yeah, I'm a little defensive. I'm so defensive, I took off the hat.
The question becomes, well, where are they getting this 138 kilowatt hour figure? There's a lot of different ways. One is the 134 kilowatt hours that was shown on the screen, but there's actually more to it. There's another calculation that people are doing, and it is this one. So from the official EPA website, we get these figures.
I just want to be clear here that I have never used this calculation in any of my videos. So to say, and I didn't use it in the video he's talking about. So to say that you're responding to me calling Lucid a scam by referring to a calculation I didn't make is odd. This is reckless on your part, Dillon. If you're going to respond to me, respond to me. I'm happy to engage you in a conversation, but you're coming at me with somebody else's calculation. I didn't make this calculation. And when you go through this calculation, you cut Lucid like a lot of other things, like you and Tom and everybody else in the media. You're cutting Lucid way too much slack. And I'm going to show you how, even on this calculation, which I don't endorse, even on this calculation, you're cutting Lucid a massive amount of slack. But let's listen to this.
S long range, the most recent, 28 kilowatt hours per 100 miles. So you have to use 28 kilowatt hours of energy to go 100 miles. And the Lucid Air Dream Edition has 27 kilowatt hours per 100 miles. But doing the Tesla math, if you simply divide the ratio, that gives you a kilowatt hour per mile of 0.28. Then if you take 0.28 and multiply it by the range of the Tesla vehicle, that would lead to a pack size of 113.4 kilowatt hours. Now, we already know that the Tesla battery pack size is what? 100 kilowatt hours. So doing this back of the napkin reverse engineering math gives us an inflated pack size number.
Yes, and more specifically, Dillon, the inflation is 13%. Let's pay attention to this. It's 113 kilowatt hours on a 100 kilowatt hour pack. 13 added to 100 is 13 or 13.4%. Let's keep with that.
So if we do that exact same math for Lucid with the EPA figures times the 520 miles of range, that would lead to a pack size of 140.4 kilowatt hours. And so this is the math that some people are arguing shows that Lucid has a pack size of 140, but I'm showing you this to be clear that this is not a good way. This reverse engineering does not give you an accurate pack size because doing it for the Model S does not make sense. It leads to 113 when the actual pack size is 100. So this is not a great argument.
So here's the thing, Dillon. It exaggerated the Tesla by 13%. I don't even endorse this test, but it exaggerated the Tesla by 13%. The Lucid came up with over 140 kilowatt hours on a 118 kilowatt hour pack, which means 22 kilowatt hours on 118 kilowatt hours, which works out to about an 18% inflation. I don't endorse this test. I don't think this is not the way I've used to compare the two. I don't think the EPA number is useful. I think there's a massive approximation used in the way the EPA came up with the 28, or whoever did it, the 28 kilowatt hours per 100 miles. But even using this flawed test, Lucid's pack size somehow gets exaggerated by 18%, where Tesla's only gets exaggerated by 13%. Interesting.
There's more. So in Warren's video, he referenced this Car and Driver report, which historically has definitely been, we'll say, not the most accurate when it comes to charging and stuff, but
Car and Driver is inaccurate? Car and Driver, I'm not saying Car and Driver is perfect, but who are your sources that are more accurate than Car and Driver? You haven't identified your sources for what charging efficiency is. I agree their 99% efficiency number is probably wrong, but their above 90% is pretty substantiated, pretty well substantiated by others. And there's a lot of little issues in here we'll get to.
Anyway, DC fast charging cuts out the AC to DC conversion losses and is more efficient still. According to data from their Model 3, it's averaging 99% efficiency at our most frequented local supercharger, which operates at 400 volts, although it's not possible to independently verify that figure. At other fast chargers, we've seen efficiency figures above 90%. So what's happening is people are taking this paragraph to say that all DC fast charging, not just superchargers, but all DC fast charging should be 99% efficient. This is just not accurate. There's a lot more, as mentioned, that goes into it.
So now at least this is a response to something I did use in my video. I did use this article. And what's clear here is, number one, that was a 400 volt supercharger they were talking about. Electrify America uses an 800 volt charging. This test was done on an 800 volt, 350 watt Electrify America supercharger. And DC fast charging is supposed to be more efficient, and 800 volts is supposed to be more efficient. Lucid Motors constantly brags that their higher voltage architecture is more efficient. That 900 volts is more efficient than Tesla's 400 volts. That their 800 volt, 350 watt chargers at Electrify America are more efficient than Tesla superchargers. So you're going to make excuses later for them being less efficient than things that they claim they're more efficient than. Let's keep going.
Teslas actually display the energy that the pack receives and not the energy that the charger sent, like most of the other charging stations. So that 99% efficiency metric is not actually accounting for charging losses that were experienced with Tesla.
And I just want to be clear, I do agree with Dillon that the 99% figure that we see with Teslas we can't verify it. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying we can't verify that it's accurate. I think it might be accurate. It's very important to Tesla to make sure that they're as efficient as possible because they're the ones paying for the electricity. If they're only charging people for the kilowatts that go into the car, that the car actually receives, then why would they want to spend extra money on the kilowatts that aren't counted and they're not compensated for? So that's a little bit of an iffy little detail there, but it's probably not 99% efficient, but it's also very likely that DC fast charging is much better than 10% inefficient. It's much better than 90% efficiency. It's probably significantly better than 92% efficiency. And that's going to matter, as we'll see.
And just to prove it to you, here is an official EPA report. This is directly from Tesla. It's their certification summary info report for the Model S Plaid 2021 version.
Okay, so we're going to have to go back to the previous screen just to show you one little detail. When you look on the far left here, let me pull up my little arrow. Right over here, it says recharge event voltage 208 volts. To be clear, whatever test was done, this was not using an 800 volt or 400 volt DC fast charging setup. This is very likely using AC charging, AC to DC charging rather than DC fast charging. So this is a detail that Dillon missed, and a lot of people who I've seen bring this up have missed this detail. Comparing how the results are on AC to DC charging is not an appropriate comparison when we're talking about DC fast charging.
For the Model S Plaid 2021 version, the recharge event energy in kilowatt hours was 116. This is saying that they used 116 kilowatt hours of charge to recharge the battery pack. So that reiterates that even for Tesla, they have fast charging or DC fast charging losses, just like everybody else.
So yes, it's true that in a completely different test, a Tesla using AC charging, which we know is less efficient than DC charging, had some inefficiencies. That's great, Dillon. But Dillon, you're not comparing apples to apples. You're comparing apples to oranges. You're getting deceived. You're allowing yourself to be deceived by something because you're not fully understanding the research. You're not really paying attention. You're not getting all the details. And so to call me being reckless when you're being reckless is a mistake, Dillon. I think you can do better.
Industry-wide, generally speaking, most charging is about 90% efficient, meaning the actual energy that's going from the charger into your battery pack, meaning you have roughly 10% of that energy being wasted or lost. So if Lucid's pack was actually 118 kilowatt hours, that would just mean that in this one test, but remember, this was one test on one charger, that it would be about 13.5% inefficient, which is well within reason of the industry averages.
No, first of all, what the worst I've seen for DC fast charging, which is 400 volt DC fast chargers, is 92% efficiency, not 90% efficient, but 92% efficiency. We don't know how efficient this particular charger is, let's be clear, but the industry average is not 13.5% is not well within industry averages when the industry average is 8%. If the industry average is 8% in efficiency, then 13.5% in efficiency is not great. It's bad. And for a company that constantly claims they're more efficient, they've got superior technology, for them to be less efficient than the competition deserves question. And you're not questioning that. This is what I see constantly with media, constantly with most YouTubers who are covering Lucid, is they just bend over backward for every mistake Lucid makes, for every lie Lucid tells. You keep making excuses for them. At what point do you hold them accountable for the lies? What did you do, Dillon, when they pushed back their delivery schedule? Did you say, wait a minute, a week earlier they lied to us about how many they were going to deliver? No, you didn't say anything. No, I'm the only one here who's pointing out Lucid's lies. Am I wrong? Look, I'm trying to be less wrong. I think I'm right. I might be wrong. You're not showing me that I need to be less wrong. You're showing me that you need to be less wrong.
Industry-wide, generally speaking, most charging is about 90% efficient, meaning the actual energy that's going from the charger into your battery pack, meaning you have roughly 10% of that energy being wasted or lost.
Okay, so there's AC to DC charging and there's DC fast charging. And the AC chargers are less efficient and the DC fast charging is more efficient. So say there's some sort of average of 90% efficiency misses out, but the AC chargers are less than 90% efficient and the DC chargers are more than 90% efficient. And this particular instance was done on a DC fast charger and what is supposed to be one of the most efficient DC fast chargers, an 800 volt, 350 kilowatt fast charger.
If Lucid's pack was actually 118 kilowatt hours, that would just mean that in this one test, but remember, this was one test on one charger, that it would be about 13.5% inefficient, which is well within reason of the industry averages.
Even if the industry average was 10% loss, 13.5% would be substantially more than the industry average. But the industry average for DC fast charging is ballpark 8% in efficiency, depending on what your numbers are. I think Teslas are much better. Tesla superchargers are much better than 8%. But now you're talking more than 50% more inefficient, right? You go from 8% loss to 13.5% loss. You've got an extra 5.5% loss versus 8. 5.5 is much more than 50% of 8. This is a dramatic difference. And you're just cutting them slack like this is no big deal. So they lose 13.5%. This is from a company that claims it's the most efficient, that its 900 volt architecture makes it more efficient, that the 800 volt charging makes it more efficient, that Electrify America is the best, it's the most efficient. And you're cutting them slack for being less efficient, for being dramatically less efficient, instead of saying, wait a minute, this is another cloud on the Lucid story that should be looked into more deeply. You're accusing me of being reckless for pointing out, hey, this doesn't fit the story. This is one more piece of evidence that it doesn't fit the story that Lucid has been telling.
One other thing that gets overlooked, I think, is yes, higher charging rates lead to more heat and more inefficiencies, more energy loss. However, this also means more battery cooling is necessary during the charge to keep the battery pack in a certain temperature range. This indeed uses energy. So that's another part of the energy loss equation that a lot of people don't talk about.
Lucid sells their 800 volt, 350 kilowatt charging with Electrify America and their own 924 volt architecture as being more efficient. I want to be clear about this. They claim they're more efficient, not less efficient. They do not claim, oh, our higher voltage leads to a greater heat loss. No, the higher voltage means better efficiency, according to Lucid. And I agree, actually, that higher voltage should lead to more efficiency. So saying, well, they're using higher voltage, they're using higher charging rates, so they're necessarily less efficient, that's contrary to the Lucid story. Why do you keep cutting them slack for being inefficient when they claim that they're more efficient? They're less efficient, they claim to be more efficient. This is a hole in the story.
I've watched a lot of charging videos, Electrify America, Tesla over the years, and I'll just say, I'm not personally confident that any of the figures displayed on the charging screens, especially at Electrify America, I'm not confident they're always going to be perfectly accurate, within plus or minus 1 kilowatt hour. I think it's possible that if you took that same Lucid and did the same test again on the same charger, you might get a figure of 130 kilowatt hours that were sent, or it could be 138 kilowatt hours. I'm just not sold that all of the data being displayed by these machines is like perfectly dead on accurate every time. So I think we need to have a little wiggle room there as well.
Lucid Motors brags about Electrify America being the centerpiece of their charging strategy. They constantly brag about their efficiency. They brag about Electrify America being the best. And now you're telling me that Electrify America is unreliable in its data. You keep cutting Lucid slack. At what point do they have to be so far off that you say, wait a minute, something's not right here? Right? This is, and I'm sorry, I'm picking on Dillon, but it's not really Dillon that I'm upset about. I mean, I'm not happy with Dillon right now because shots were fired, and I don't think you backed it up, Dillon. But it's a common practice across all media and social medias. Everyone is cutting Lucid slack. You know they lied to us in February and before February about when they were going to deliver cars and how many cars they were going to deliver. You know they've lied to us about other things. If you're paying attention, if you're not paying attention, why are you jumping into this conversation? But all these people just keep cutting them slack over and over and over again, and they keep making excuses for them. Look, these guys are claiming to be the best. Don't give them excuses if they're going to claim to be the best. If they're going to claim that Electrify America is a better charging system than the Tesla supercharger network, then it should be more efficient. If they're claiming this is the most efficient DC fast charging network, then it should be more efficient than the industry average, and you shouldn't be cutting them slack for being more than 50% less efficient than the industry average for DC fast charging.
To wrap this section up, I just want to remind you guys that this is actually a far more nuanced conversation than the things I just laid out.
Far more nuanced would mean what you'd really want to do is you'd want to dig into the details. You'd want to learn more about it. You'd want to cover all the details. So to jump in on one little point and then say, oh, it's far more nuanced, it is more nuanced, but you're ignoring all the nuances.
There's things like peak voltage rates and amp hours and thermodynamics and inefficiencies and things that we didn't even touch on in this brief segment. So what I'm getting at is, do I think that Lucid is a scam or a fraud? No, not yet. Is it possible? Sure. But at this point, I'm just saying I think it's at least possible Lucid does indeed have a 118 kilowatt hour pack.
I'm going to agree here that it is possible that Lucid has a 118 kilowatt hour pack. I could be wrong. I'm trying to be less wrong. But I have calculated 3 different ways that Lucid has significantly larger than 118 kilowatt hour pack, and 2 of those calculations lead directly to 138.6 kilowatt hours. And he mentioned peak voltage. There's this argument that Lucid, when they say they have 924 volts, that's their peak voltage. It's not the nominal voltage. Well, then why do they brag about having a 900 volt architecture? If you're going to claim you're 900 volts, and then your defense is, well, really nominal, it's only under 800 volts, and that's how you come up with a calculation that gets 118 kilowatt hours, then why are they bragging about 900 volts? Make up your mind. Are you a 900 volt architecture or are you an 800 volt architecture? If you're going to brag about the 900 volts, you got to live with the 900 volts. And that leads to the calculation, 924 volts, 150 amp hours. You can do the math yourself. It's 138.6 kilowatt hour pack. It's simple math. It's not very hard. If you're going to back it off and say, well, we're really only using 780 volt nominal voltage, and then we get to 118 kilowatt hours, well, then stop claiming you have a 900 volt architecture. You don't get to claim 900 volts one way and then say, well, we're not really using all 900. It's nonsense. It's like, at what point, we're going to go with nuance? That's a pretty big nuance.
Given the charging inefficiencies and inaccurate readings and flawed mathematical calculations that people are using to disprove that figure. And I do like to give people the benefit of the doubt until they give you factual information that you are proven wrong. So I'm choosing to do that here with Lucid. Yes, I could absolutely be wrong. I just think at this point, we don't have enough information to know for sure.
He's right. We don't have enough information to know for sure. And the reason we don't have enough information is because Lucid is the opposite of transparent. They keep hiding stuff. They have not told us what specific battery chemistry they are using. They claim they're using the latest high nickel battery chemistry from LG Chem and 2170 cells, which if they are using that, it's 300 watt hours per kilogram. And a calculation that Dillon didn't look at, 300 watt hours per kilogram, 70 grams a cell, 6,600 cells works out to 138.6 kilowatt hours. So what battery chemistry are they using? Why haven't they disclosed that? Why is that a big secret? What battery chemistry they're getting from LG Chem? What reason would there be for this to be a big secret? And when you're charging $170,000 a car, I sure as hell hope you're using the latest battery chemistry, right? I mean, the Grand Touring has only a 112 kilowatt hour pack with the same number of cells, so they're probably using a less energy dense battery chemistry in the Grand Touring, and that would explain the difference in kilowatt hours in the pack. And that vehicle costs like $30,000 or $40,000 less. So that would make sense that you're spending less because you're not buying the most efficient cells for that vehicle. If you don't even look at the calculations I actually used to come up with 138.6 kilowatt hours, and then we're saying we're using the wrong calculations, well, what calculations are you using, Dillon? The calculations you're using are the numbers that Lucid is spoon feeding to the media instead of doing your own work. Instead of looking at the hard numbers, instead of looking at the EPA documents yourself. You missed in that EPA document that it was 208 volts, so it was very clearly not DC fast charging in that test. You're not doing your homework. Don't call me reckless when you're not doing your homework, when you're being careless.
Really need Sandy Monroe to grab one of these Lucids and tear it down and give us some official figures. Hopefully we'll get that here sometime soon.
Anytime Lucid Motors wants to, they can deliver a Lucid Air Dream Edition to Sandy Monroe, and he would be happy to tear it down. They've already said they want to do it, but they don't want to spend $170,000 tearing down to buy a vehicle to tear it down. If Lucid really wants to persuade the public, sure, give a Lucid Air to Sandy Monroe. Let them tear it down. Give it to them. Let them pick one, and let them tear it down. They'll drive it, they'll see whether it really gets 520 miles of range, and then they'll tear it down and they'll see what battery chemistry we're really using. It's going to happen sooner or later. I don't know what Lucid's hiding. We're going to see, then we'll see what's in the Wonder Box. The Wonder Box they've been telling us about forever. Their power to weight ratio. This is another thing that Dillon doesn't address. Why does the Lucid Air weigh 5,200 pounds? Why does it weigh 660 pounds more than the Model S long range? Why does a vehicle that supposedly has higher power to weight ratio in its motors? Why does a vehicle that supposedly has the most efficient battery technology, why does it weigh over 600 pounds more than the Model S long range? See, it's not just one hole in the story, Dillon. There's a lot of holes in this story, and you're missing that. There's a lot of little things like, why do they use narrow tires on the Lucid Air to get extra range? Right? Why aren't they using competitive tires? They're doing all kinds of things to squeak out all kinds of little edges here and there and there. It doesn't work. Why does this car weigh 5,200 pounds? Something isn't right. The answer is because they have an extra 20 kilowatt hours of batteries. That's a really good explanation for why it weighs so much.
But for Lucid to lie about something like this at this point would be very disheartening, incredibly reckless. Like, why would you blow up the future perception of your country for a small efficiency increase when in the grand scheme of things, it's not that big of a deal? So hopefully you guys maybe learned a thing or two. If nothing else, I hope it adds a little bit more nuance to the conversation.
Okay, so why would Lucid lie about selling 6,000 cars in 2021 and delivering cars in the spring? A week before the SPAC merger was announced, and then they cut it back to we're going to deliver in the second half of the year, and we're going to deliver maybe 500 cars. Why would they lie then? And this is the thing. This is people wonder why I'm so strongly passionate about Lucid being liars. It's because I noticed it in September of 2020. And this started for me in September of 2020 when they had the reveal, and I noticed it was full of fluff and there were a lot of things that were missing. And then when they had this big lie in February, you don't get slack from me anymore when you just lied to us. This is the thing. If you jump into the story late and you missed that they lied to everyone in February of 2021, right before the SPAC merger, and they had this lie going for months that they were going to deliver 6,000 cars this year, and they were, and nobody asked them tough questions like, why the change? And the best we got from Peter Rawlinson was, well, we wanted to make sure we got the vehicle right. But you just told people how great it was just before that. What wasn't right? What needs to be fixed? There's all these little issues that are out here, and people just keep cutting Lucid slack, Okay, look, if it was an empty slate and this was the one thing, the one strike against Lucid, okay, maybe you'd cut them slack on it. But there's a history here, and I have multiple videos going through this, and if you watch all my videos, you see the pattern. Lucid lies a lot. This isn't the only lie. They lie, and I might be wrong on this one. I don't think I'm wrong. I'm pretty confident I'm right. But I want to be less wrong. I'm wearing the Be Less Wrong shirt for a reason. ElonBits.com for the shirts. Dillon here is jumping in out of nowhere with no context and saying, oh, the situation's more nuanced. You get a lot better nuance if you're fully familiar with the whole story. And I've made videos starting in September of 2020 that have gotten a lot of views, frankly, so a lot of people have seen them. And one other thing here, Dillon pointed to a comment on his video that was critical of Lucid, saying it had 134 kilowatt hours into a 118 kilowatt hour pack. And that comment had 140 likes and no dislikes, 140 thumbs up and no thumbs down. Unless YouTube stopped counting thumbs down, I don't know. But a lot of people agree with the commenter that there's something wrong there. And that's not the only example of comments getting things wrong and, tweets getting things wrong. I saw this on Twitter. How can you think that so many people would knowingly work in a company lying? Thousands of people work at Lucid. If this was true, it would be exposed in a minute. It's totally impossible to hide. You'd probably also believe in other conspiracies. Oh, really, Tobiah? So Tobiah got a lot wrong. First of all, thousands of people do not work at Lucid Motors. Lucid has in the ballpark of 1,400 or 1,500 employees. You can see here in press that Lucid solicited. They were hoping to grow their workforce from 600 to 1,500 employees in Arizona in 2021. The last time I saw Lucid talking about how many employees they had 1,400. So they do not have thousands of employees. But even if they do have thousands of employees, look up at the top here. Enron had 29,000 employees. Theranos had 800. Nikola had over 600. In all these cases, the vast majority of the employees didn't know it was a fraud. Not everyone working for the company knows it's a fraud. Think about all the employees who work at dealerships, the sales centers that Lucid has. They have no idea that this is a fraud. The office workers don't know it's a fraud. It's a very limited group of people, top engineers at Lucid, and the CEO who are going to be in on a fraud like this. Same thing at Enron. The vast majority of employees at Enron had no idea what was happening. Theranos, I think some of the employees, if you watch the documentary, a lot of the employees had figured out something was wrong towards the end. Elizabeth Holmes and her top team kept a lot of the details hidden from a lot of the employees. A lot of the employees had no idea what was going on. How many employees at Nikola knew what the fraud was? Not everyone is in on it. If you're a fraudulent company, the fraud is hidden by a few people at the top, and they try to keep everyone else from knowing about what the fraud is. So this idea that, and he says you probably also believe in other conspiracies. Well, Enron, Theranos, and Nikola were conspiracies. I think Trevor Milton's in prison, or going to prison. I think Elizabeth Holmes was prosecuted federally. I think Enron people were prosecuted federally. And I think conspiracies were among the charges. So I love when people talk about, like, you probably believe in other conspiracies, as if conspiracies never happen. Conspiracies happen all the time. The word conspiracy exists for a reason. I just love how the concept of conspiracy theory has been demonized when there are we have the word for a reason, because there really are conspiracies. The underlying situation here is that Lucid has been lying to the public a lot. And I've caught them in a lot of their lies. And I'm not apologizing for showing their lies. And people want to cut them slack, whether an EV company. There's a concept in Silicon Valley called fake it until you make it. And there's a point where, okay, you're promising things you hope to deliver, and you're probably not really there yet, so you sort of fake it until you get there. But Lucid's been faking it until they make it for about 5 years now. At what point do they actually get there? They just keep lying. They just keep lying and lying and lying. And at some point, it's going to catch up to them. And they keep stretching the lie as long as possible for God knows what reason. I can't tell you what gets into the head of fraudsters and how they choose to make their fraudulent decisions and why they go the direction they go. You start lying a little and it sort of snowballs and you can't stop the lying. And there's a lot of explanations for why this is happening. You're keeping the lie going as long as possible so that insiders can get out with as much money as possible before the crash. I don't know. I'm not sure I can really explain why it's all going this way, but this is what we're seeing. I genuinely believe that Lucid is a fraud. It's a scam. There's no way that they're delivering 500 vehicles this year. I don't think they're going to make 100 this year at the pace that I've seen. There's no way they're delivering the 20,000 vehicles they claim they're going to deliver next year. They are hand building these vehicles. They don't have the manufacturing down. There's all kinds of problems. There's this review from cars.com. Maybe I'll do another video with this. And the guy gets in the car and there's this frame of the car that's along the left side above the window and before the sunroof. It's like incredibly bulky and you have to get down far, and the footwell in the rear seat on the Dream Edition that has all the extra batteries in it is unusually shallow. There's all these little holes. The trunk is tiny for a vehicle that's supposed to be this luxurious and this big. The trunk is tiny. It's an oddly shaped. I've seen the trunk. I was at the sales center in West Palm Beach and I saw the trunk. The trunk is oddly shaped. It's tiny. For the size of the vehicle that it's supposed to be, there's a lot of oddities. There's a lot of things that aren't right. So as always, we want to be less wrong. So please check out the t-shirts at elonbits.com. Thank you to the Vasa Law Firm in Sweden, all my Patreon supporters for helping this channel grow. Check out my political channel, The Daily Lie. Link to that in the description below. Check out my other videos. And thank you so much for watching.